morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in this world. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Empowerment Platform, where our goal is to simply empower you to reach your goals. Today, I have a special guest with me, Mr. Alan Lazaros. How are you, sir?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
And so I just want to do a quick introduction of how me and Alan and I met. My kids went to a Speak, Lead, and Feed. It was kind of a virtual event for children. And it was more of, okay, how do you teach them to be more or to perform better, how to have more self-esteem. And a lot of the speakers really talked about the approaches for young kids. And so my kids had the pleasure of listening to him speak, hear him, and they had just a lot of great things to say. He really was able to touch them. And so they mentioned that I had a podcast. He has a podcast. And so that relationship or that introduction was made from my kids. So, Alan, I just thank you for joining me. I thank you for coming on. Will you start with just a little bit about your background, your story, introduce us to who you are?
So yeah, absolutely. There's a short version, a middle version, and a long one. I'll try to give you the middle version. Again, I'm 31 years old, so it's hard to encapsulate that many years in just a short story. But my story starts very, very young. So when I was 2 years old, my father passed away in a car accident. Mm-hmm. And I start there because I lost something very near and dear that I'll never really get back in a certain regard, but I also gained something. And what I gained was I was actually raised by two women. So I have an older sister who's 3 years older than me and my mother. And so I do think that in hindsight, that's definitely been, it's made me very unique in the sense that I didn't necessarily have a strong father figure growing up. Now, that said, fast forward a few years and I'm about 10 years old. And I'm in the car with my mom, and we're driving past WPI. So WPI is a college called Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and it's basically like a mini MIT. And my mom said to me verbatim, I remember like it was yesterday, she said, "Alan, you're really smart people go there. You should go there one day because life is about choices." She always taught me basically, and this is verbatim what she used to say, "Alan, you can be a CEO or you can be a farmer. I'm going to love you either way. But if you're a CEO, you can decide to be a farmer when you wake up one day." Yeah. But if the other way around, you can't necessarily just decide overnight to become a CEO. So what she taught me was basically aim really high, be really smart, because you'll have choices, and that life is about choices. And that has been so true. And I learned that lesson more and more as I grow older and older. So here I am, we're driving past WPI. She plants that seed in my heart. And at the time, my uncle was actually the track and field coach. He actually has since passed away, and the track and field is actually named after him. And so fast forward, she actually took a huge chance on me. And what's interesting is you and I met through your children. And one of your kids is 11 years old. And I don't know what grade he's in. Is he in middle school yet?
Yep, sixth grade.
Okay, so my mom, I was in 8th grade at the time, and she took a chance on this. And she said, "Alan, I'm going to let you take 8th grade off if you promise me that you'll get the President's Award in high school." And so in high school, what the President's Award is basically you need a 95 or above GPA out of 100, all report cards for all of high school. So if you look at my academic career and you were ever to look back at middle school, and high school, all of my grades were usually straight A's, only 1 or 2 B's. And then in 8th grade, there was C's, there was D's. Like I kind of took that year just to enjoy myself. She took a real chance on that. And she made me promise her that I would try my best in high school. And I kept that promise. And it was hard, but I only got 1 B+ all of high school. The rest were all straight A's. And I got to go to WPI. So here we are doing my college essay for WPI. She's helping me with it. And not doing it for me, but helping me with it. And I go to WPI, and I went from a small town, in Uxbridge, Massachusetts, to, being the quote unquote smart kid, to now I'm at WPI, which is like, intellectually, I'm not the smart kid anymore. Let's just say that. Everybody knows differential equations and calculus and all that stuff. And so I do electrical and computer engineering undergrad, and then I eventually go and get my MBA. But here's what ended up happening. So after my engineering degree, graduated with high distinction, went into corporate America, did a lot of soul searching. Started a small company called Campus Libre with some of my friends from WPI, worked at iRobot, Tyco Safety Products, Oz Development, Sensata Technologies. I did all these different roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of soul searching. And what I eventually found is I landed at a company called Cognex. Now, Cognex is their motto to this day. It's an industrial automation company. And to this day, their motto is work hard, play hard. And I used to say work hard, play harder. And so one of the things that is kind of a common theme in my life that kind of strings all this together is that I grew up in an environment where drinking was fairly common. I had an older sister. And I remember she would have a party at the house with, people who were 19, 20, 21, and they were drinking. And me and my buddy, Kiki, were exposed to that a lot younger because she always hung out with the older crowd too. And so in college, I was in a fraternity. I did some drinking. In high school, a little bit at the tail end. And then in corporate, in the sales environment, drinking was a part of that as well.
Okay.
And so now I'm 26 years old. I rose in corporate America. I went from, 65,000 a year to 85, eventually hit my goal of 100 out of college, and ended up at 120 plus. And then I got promoted to outside sales, and I was basically managing all of Western New England for Cognex. And they had this amazing referral program that was a huge bonus structure. So I got a lot of my friends from WPI to come there. Mm-hmm. And in 2014, I made a very, very large sum of money near the $200,000 mark. Now, here's the interesting thing. I kind of thought that success financially would give me choices, and it did. But in hindsight, I wasn't making very good choices. Now, here's where my life really changed. I was 26 years old, and it was this really, I believe this was in 2015 or 2016. I think it's 2015. And I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin, and I thought the road stayed right. It actually stayed left. I was looking down at the GPS. I think we're going to TGI Fridays. And for a second, I was looking down at the GPS. When I looked up, I saw the brightest lights I'd ever seen with this big lift-kitted truck, like right in front of me. And it was the scariest moment of my life to this day. And I legitimately thought to myself, this is it. And so if you're out there listening right now and you've had a near-death experience, you know that feeling of like, this is probably it. Maybe you've had a loss of a loved one or loss of a pet. And I now say it shakes your snow globe. Fortunately, I was driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat, which I used to call the tank. So my goal was to get out of debt as much as possible. So I bought an older car, paid in cash just to save money. And fortunately, both airbags went off. Me and my little cousin, he hurt his knee. I hurt my face a little bit on the airbag, but overall we were okay. Now I'm sitting there in an armchair drinking whiskey after the accident. And I was just like questioning everything. I was questioning my entire life. I literally was like, sitting there thinking to myself, like, would my dad be proud of the man I became? Now, remember, my father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. I'm 26 at the time going, this really could be it. And what's interesting about the gift that I was given from a very young age is that a lot of people have this intellectual understanding of death where it's like, okay, we all know intellectually we're going to die one day.
Right.
See, for me, it's never been intellectual. I grew up my whole life hearing stories about John, hearing stories about my dad. I've seen the picture of the car. And when I saw the picture of my own car in the junkyard, it was like very similar. So I really know that could have been it. Mm-hmm. And after that, I changed everything. How courageously did I fight for what I believe in was one of the questions I asked myself. Didn't like my answer. And then how openly and fiercely did I love? And I didn't like my answer to that either. And so I often say life is about choices. Emotional pain is guaranteed. But when you're in emotional pain, or shame or regret, you're going to have a choice. You can either develop a virtue and raise your standards and create a brighter future, or you can slip into vice, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. And so I think the amount of times that you choose virtue over vice is going to really make the biggest difference in your life. And that's every moment of every single day. And so that's kind of my story. And I live by that every day. Every day I have a choice of how I'm going to show up in the world. And I have a choice every day to drink or not drink. I'm now 427 days sober. It took me 5 years because remember, I'm 26 at the time. Now I'm 31. It took me 5 years. I failed forward, but I'm now sober. And it's changed the lives of all those people around me as well. And you have a ripple effect beyond what you can currently comprehend. And, if you're out there right now and you aren't proud of yourself, that's okay, because if you can admit that, sit with it, you'll raise a new standard, and you'll have a brighter future on your own terms if you can really start to look in those difficult moments where it's like, you know what, maybe I didn't make the best choices.
That's good. And congratulations on your sobriety. That is something that many people struggle with, and all kind of vices, addictions, and things that just handcuff us. Just hearing your story, we have a similarities throughout there. And understanding being in corporate, that it it doesn't always meet all of those checks or goals, and sometimes we just hustle and we run, but it's still that emptiness. I know that for me, I struggle with that. Like, what is my real purpose? Am I really doing what I've been called to do? I'm accomplishing things, I'm successful, and people are saying, man, you have everything that you could want. But having that empty feeling goes back to thinking about, like you said, am I loving fiercely? Am I doing everything to the best of my ability? Am I reaching or impacting those people? So just to go back a little bit, why why did your mom make that deal of taking the eighth grade year off? And what did you do in that time period?
Honestly, I think she went with her intuition, and maybe she was trying. So here's what I do know. My mom was the third child in her family, and she wasn't. So her older sister is 17 years older than her.
Okay.
So her parents, my grandfather and grandmother, who both have since passed in their late 80s and 90s, they were kind of already farther along. They were in their mid 40s when they had her, and they figured, okay, she's a beautiful woman, and she'll get married, she'll have kids, and she'll be fine.
Mhm.
She always kind of wished. So when my father passed away, she had two kids, me and my sister, and she realized, like, in that moment, oh my God, I don't have that many choices, because she was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and that was a choice that she had made. But when she was backed into that corner of, I have to somehow provide for two kids by myself without a huge academic background, I guess she really wished she had taken her education more seriously, but she was never taught, to do that. And so that, I think she always taught me that education and learning and matters most. And I'll always, I'm so grateful for that, because I always kind of knew, because of her, that if I was smart enough, I would have choices. And
Mhm.
so I think that she was trying to contemplate, how can I get him to really understand the value of high school? And I think that was her way of doing it, which is like, go have fun in eighth grade, because high school is going to be hard. And I want you to really take it seriously. Like, I wish I did. And my mom's always done a really good job of trying to communicate to me in a way that I would understand. And it's interesting, because I was on the call with your children, one's 7, one's 11. And in my mind, it's like, okay, how do I communicate effectively based on where their awareness is? And it can be a challenge at times, but
Yeah.
it's really cool when you can break through and make those tiny distinctions happen for them, like really click, and now they can have a new trajectory because of it. And so I think my mom wanted me to be on a good trajectory that she wished she had, and I owe her so much for that.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, we have just some similarities because while I was growing up, my father was in prison. So I was with my mom, and she really pushed education. And my great grandfather was the next person that I would say pushed education. And it was because we grew up in South Alabama, and he was growing up in the 1920s and 30s. He didn't have all the opportunities, and he lost his father when he was 8. So my great grandfather, all he told us was stories of how he worked, how he had to work, how he was chopping cotton at 8 years old for a dime a week. I grew up listening to that story, and then listening to him tell us on the way to the bus every day, learn all you can because you're going to need it. And then he would break it down. I didn't get the opportunity. I went into the army, and then I learned to read. I didn't have schooling before that. So even with my kids, I remember how I was pushed to do well in school because that was the way out of South Alabama, very small town, only opportunities of farming, factory work, paper mill. If you want more, you got to do it educational. You
Yeah.
got to go out that way. And there was a caveat of, and we can't afford to send you to school. So if you want to go, you got to get a scholarship.
Exactly.
That was always on the forefront. So your mom and mine were very similar in pushing us and letting us know, hey, here's what the opportunities are. This is the requirement that you do. And it's just amazing that we have that similarity in story. And we both kind of went through similar things. I went to college, got into IT work, did corporate America, figured out, you know what, you can make a lot of money, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
fulfilling. Is it really what we want?
Right.
And so now we're back to right after the accident, you had that sit down talk with yourself. You're figuring out, okay, what's next? I'm thinking that you may have had a new lease on life. So you start to think deeply about what are the next steps. Now we know that you're doing a podcast and you a peak performance business coach. How did you leave corporate and enter into that? And why did you do it? What made that change?
So to answer this question, I'll start here. So we have something that we refer to as the pain pleasure pendulum. So if you never get to hell no, you'll never go all the way to hell yes. And so for me, after that car accident, I was all the way at hell no. I was in so much pain. And after that, it kind of, if you're out there right now listening, you have a spotless future. Like, really think about that for a second. Like, no matter what you've done in the past, no matter where you grew up, no matter who told you could or couldn't, you actually right now have a spotless future. And you can start making new choices right now, forever. Unfortunately, humans don't usually wake up to the choices they're making because most of our choices are completely unconscious. Like, if you wake up this morning and you probably put your pants on the same way every morning. You probably shower the same way. You wash your hair first. Everything we do is conditioned, and most of the choices we're making are unconscious. And so if you're out there right now, you, like me, have a spotless future from this moment first. And becoming aware of that will help you tremendously. So how did I go from that car accident to now where I am today?
Yeah.
And how can I answer that question effectively? I would say first and foremost, I was in deep emotional pain. And instead of numbing it with distraction, Netflix, alcohol, marijuana, anything vice, I actually sat in it long enough to question and contemplate the way I was living my life. I really took the time to reflect on the choices I made up to that point and what I was and was not proud of. I was not a bad person.
Right.
I had pure intentions, but I did make bad choices. See, I want your listeners and anyone listening right now to separate. You are not necessarily a bad person. Maybe you just have bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I had pure intentions. I was, a young kid who wanted to be a Fortune 50 CEO one day. I read Steve Jobs' book by Walter Isaacson, and he was kind of my hero, not because of who he necessarily was as a person, but because of the impact that he had in the world. Okay? He revolutionized 7 industries. Now, here's the interesting thing, right? I set that goal to be a Fortune 50 CEO. The problem is I wasn't as clear on my core values.
Okay. Yeah.
So when you have a goal, but you're not clear on your core values, which will keep you in how you. So, for example, just to make this tangible, if you intend to be a millionaire, so if you're out there right now and you intend to be a millionaire like me, if you're not clear on your core values, you might work at a cigarette company. I had a client not long ago, this actually probably about a year ago, who asked me to help him grow his business, and he sells wine. I said, nothing against you, but I think alcohol has caused more pain and suffering in the world than any substance in the world. So I can't help you do that. That's not the impact that I want to have. If I was only chasing the $1 million, I would have taken that opportunity,
Right. Yeah.
which would be not fulfilling, right? So how did I go from the car accident to who I am today? I would say I got crystal clear on who I am, and I stopped appeasing everybody else. So in that dark moment, there's a saying that I tell people on stage. You cannot see the stars during the day. Right now it's light out. You can't see the stars, also because there's clouds. But at night you can see them. Sometimes it takes the darkness to see clearly that which you simply could not within the light. When you're in emotional pain, if you can sit in it Don't dwell in it. Don't live there, but sit in it long enough. Don't escape it. What does this mean? What is the universe trying to teach me? What is life trying to teach me? You're going to see something you never saw before. The 2 stars that I saw, Tony Robbins' TED Talk. Have you seen it?
Yep, absolutely.
6 Human Needs. Okay, so that was fire. And then Bronnie Ware. She's an Australian woman who wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Oh, wow.
From that car accident to today, I have a flashcard in my pocket with the top 5 regrets of the dying. And now I actually reverse engineer regret every single day. We've actually been able to interview her. She was on our podcast, which was so cool.
Nice.
So the first regret of the dying is I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. I was, I had the beautiful girlfriend. I had tons of college friends. I had tons of corporate friends. I had tons of high school friends. I partied. I had fun. I had more than enough money. I was making $12,000 checks every other week. I was making tons of money. I had what other people saw as successful,
Yes.
but on the inside, I was not successful because I wasn't proud of me. And so at the end of the day, not an ego thing, I finally started making decisions that made me proud of me. And that's how I became this man I am today. I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to go all in on my dreams. I almost just died. I'm going to go all in on my dreams. I got nothing to lose. I was a model. I did fitness bodybuilding shows. I went all in on fitness. Now I'm a coach. I started a podcast. I've spoken on stages. I just went all in. Unfortunately, sometimes you won't go all in until you've been all out. And for me, that was the car accident and realizing like that could have been it. After that, you got nothing to lose. And I just started making changes. And I'll never forget, a year later, I wrote down all of the things I do in a given day. I have this framework that I give to my clients. Bad habits, good habits, wishful habits. So write down all your bad habits. And to define a bad habit, it's simple. This habit does not bring me closer to my goals and dreams. Bad habit. Okay. Yeah. Good habit. This habit does bring me closer to my goals and dreams. Good habit. Wishful habits. These are habits I wish I had. Replace column 1 with column 3. In other words, take a bad habit, choose it, say, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to replace it with this other habit that I really want. For me, I quit drinking and I started going to the gym. And guess what? Fitness became my main priority. Mm-hmm. So now alcohol now has a bigger detriment.
Right.
I always say you can either have a 6-pack or drink a 6-pack, never both. And so that's really how I became this man today is small daily disciplines, mm-hmm. congruent with my highest self, consistently done over time. And I know that doesn't sound sexy, but it is what it's really taken. And I, a year later, did that same exercise, and I realized that nothing I used to do in a day is the same as what I do now, other than like brush my teeth and shower and all that. But like generally speaking, my entire life has changed because my behavior has changed.
That's phenomenal. And the things that what I take away from what you have said is, one, you sat in your pain long enough to realize that, hey, there's some things that I haven't been doing and I need to change it. I think that oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this as well, in a high productive society, we kind of take those punches and we keep going.
Right.
We never really sit in it and think about what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We just go to work and we just do the next thing or do the next task. And I deal with, especially with some of my clients, with that. When was the last time you celebrated a small win? When did you take time to just pat yourself on the back and say, I accomplished this? I have a client right now. He has got his degree, went and got a job, didn't even celebrate. Now he has a job. He's going to get certification after certification. No time in between. And I'm like, okay, so how are you celebrating? Oh, yeah, that's what I'm missing. I'm not doing that celebration piece. And so when we think about this, and I love the way you just sat in that pain, you knew it didn't connect anymore. You didn't want to be that. And then you start to make the transition. You also didn't give me a Campbell soup version either. You didn't say, hey, if you wake up, do this, you'll be great. It's the small, consistent changes over a long period of time that creates consistency and discipline. Mm. So now you're disciplined in exercising. There's no room for alcohol.
Exactly.
You eliminate the bad habit by replacing it. And I think that's another piece where people get confused. I want to quit smoking. Well, what are you going to replace that smoking with?
Right.
To just let it go is going to be difficult. But what can you do instead of picking up a cigarette? Maybe you need to pick up some, put something in your hand, because when most smokers quit, they still have to fumble around, chew gum, or do something to replace that urge. So I really appreciate that insight that you gave us on that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Now, it sounds like to me you have a great, what I have borrowed from other coaches is a life operating plan.
Mm.
Can you give us a view of your day? What does your day look like? How do you start in the mornings? What is your routine? How do you end your day? What is that peak performance routine that you have?
So the first thing I'll say here, and it's a great question, and I'm glad we're going into that too, because John Maxwell wrote a book called Today Matters. And he said, the reason I wrote the book Today Matters is because today matters.
Yeah.
And so there's this one line in that book, not sexy, but so true. The key to your long-term success lives in your daily routine.
Yep.
I was a fitness coach for a long time, and I could kind of tell by someone's habits whether or not they're going to succeed or fail in the long term. If you know business really well, you can look at a business, you can look at their habits of that business, you can look at their brand and their employee, you can see whether or not they're most likely to win. And then that's what the stock market is. You bet on businesses that you believe will add more value over time.
Right.
And so you invest today for a brighter tomorrow. Here's the problem. Why would Warren Buffett invest in a stock he didn't believe would grow? So the first place to start to make a daily routine is to understand your own self-worth and the value of your time. Okay? If you truly understood, and you're out there listening, the long-term compound effect of your daily decisions, you would immediately start having a next level daily routine. When I take you through mine, which I'm going to do in a second, understand I didn't start here. Okay. This was a long, arduous journey. And this is, I was 26 during that car accident. I'm 31 now. So this was 5 years ago that I started really dialing in my daily routine. Now, this is what my daily routine looks like. So I wake up in the morning. The very first thing I do is I go to my whiteboard and I write out all of the things I want to get done in my morning. I break my days up into thirds. So the first third is to fill my own cup and my own personal development. So no one can get a hold of me before noon. Okay. So for example, if you tried to book this show, you probably noticed there's nothing before noon.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. From my mornings are mine. Okay. So that's my first third is fill my own cup, do my own personal development, fitness, all that. Second third of my day is for service. So after I fill my cup, now I go out and I serve. That can be coaching clients. That can be consulting with businesses. That can be going on podcasts like this. That can be meetings with Kevin for our podcast. That can be recording our own episodes, you name it. Okay. The third is for rest and relaxation or quality time with my intimate partner, Emilia, occasionally friends and family as well. And so remember, I didn't start here, but to me, if you want a well-designed life, you're going to have a well-designed day. And so I wake up in the morning, go to my whiteboard. I brain dump everything I need to do that day. Now, the very first thing I do is put on a morning mindset workout on the background. So we have Chromecast behind me right here. And in my house, this is the studio, but in my house, I have Chromecast on every TV. And so when I wake up in the morning, I have a YouTube playlist that I Chromecast to my TV every single morning. And by the way, the first video is called Ode to Excellence by my buddy Eddie Pinero. We've actually since co-hosted an event with him. And this was the first video he ever did. It's called Ode to Excellence. I've watched this video every morning and legitimately never missed since that car accident for 5 full years.
Wow.
I've never missed a day. And I honestly never will. It's the first thing I do in the morning. I prime my mind for excellence first thing in the morning, every morning. And there's actually a playlist that goes through several videos. Ode to Excellence is just the first one. There's actually 4 or 5, and it's actually public on my YouTube if anyone's interested. But okay, then I go to the whiteboard, brain dump everything I need to get done that day. Then I try to figure out what are the top 3 that matter most.
Yeah.
And then I put them in order of most importance. Okay. Then I focus only on that top 1, then 2, then 3, and then I get extras if I can.
Right.
Then my calendar. So usually I have things scheduled from anywhere from noon to 6 p.m. And my Calendly link that I think my assistant had sent to you only allows from noon to 6 p.m. because after 6 p.m., that's when I start my nightly routine. In the evening, once service is done, coaching calls, podcasts, team meetings, all of those things, then my evening starts at 6 p.m. Then I immediately go to the gym. Okay. Now I'm in the gym. after the gym, then I go spend time with my girlfriend, or I go get rest and relaxation and do my own stuff. Now, at the tail end of the day, if I want to be productive still, I can.
Yeah.
If I don't want to, then I just do R&R. And for me, I try to do 80-20. So 20% rest and relaxation, 80% productivity. I think other people are doing the opposite and then wondering why they're not successful. I think the key to life is productivity. What is it, Jim Rohn? He says, what does he say? He's like, the objective is not to relax. The objective is productivity. So
Right.
if your goal is productivity, relaxing is a necessity to optimize productivity. If you're an Olympic athlete, you need to rest and relax at times before the gun
Absolutely.
goes off. Because when that gun goes off and you're a 100-meter dash against the fastest people in the world, it's whoever has the most in the tank at the time. So who got the best sleep the night before, you know? And so, yeah, you got to train like a beast, of course, but you also have to rest like a beast as well. And so that's my day. That's the very short version of it. But one thing I will say is I cash out every day. So everyone on our team has what's called a PPT, a peak performance tracking, and all my clients have this as well. Google spreadsheets, I have 2 folders, one for our team and then one for all my clients. It basically tracks TPO, total productive output. So like today, this morning when I woke up, I tracked my day from the previous day. I had, what was today? Probably like I think it was in the 70s, 70% day. If I could share my screen with you, I could show you. I have it graphed. I have my productivity graphed over time. All my clients have their productivity graphed over time. All of our team has their productivity graphed over time. And then we have a master dashboard where everyone can see everyone else's productivity. Now, if you think I'm crazy and you're out there and you think I'm crazy, I often say this to people when they want to work with me. If you want a world-class life, I am the coach for you. If you want an ordinary life, I honestly am not. I'm not. I am excessive, but in a positive direction, I believe. And you know, if you want to live a world-class life, you're going to have world-class habits and a world-class daily routine. And you know, that's a little sneak peek into mine.
Absolutely. And that's phenomenal, because the takeaways that I take from that is, one, you have to have this thing planned, and there has to be a thought process behind it. I know that I presented to a group of coaches on Sunday evening, and what we did was we went over my DISC assessment, and I kind of spoke to who I am, what I do, and how I show up on each one of those letters, the D, the I, the S, and the C. I'm more dominant and more influential. So my stability and my pace is off. And that reflects in my self-care being off at times. I I can solve some problems. I can go get it. I can do some work. But when it comes to relaxing, I have a problem with that.
Right.
And it's just because I haven't optimized my self-care. And it's funny that you mentioned that first block, that 1/3. This week, Monday, I actually sat down and said, you know what? The first 4 hours of the day are going to be for me.
Good for you.
Not going to do any work.
Change your life.
I just started it. And it's funny that we're talking about it, because now I see that, and I've seen it for a while. It's not good to just go, 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 go. I have to have some level of self-care, and I also have to have that family atmosphere and be present. If I'm just killing myself for the business or for the job, I'm never really giving all of me to my family. And that has happened. I'm too
Right.
tired, or I'm frustrated. So I really appreciate that breakdown in thirds. I'm gonna have to modify mine a little bit more, because that time frame that you give yourself for self-care makes you a better coach, makes you a better partner,
Right.
significant other, spouse, business person, child. All of those things you can't give, or people want to get into marriage and say, let's give 50-50. Well, you need two whole people to give themselves to a marriage so it can be whole. If you're both 50% and you're not whole, you're giving only half of yourself and wanting a great product. So the self-care, if something I could take away from that, that's it for everyone that's listening. Create a self-care routine and make that the start. I like the way you start your day with that, because we know at the tail end of the day, that's when energy is lower. So whatever we put off to the end, if we're not optimized, we will end up not giving our full selves. So I love that. I love it. Now let's just switch gears a little bit. talk about the Hyperconscious podcast. How did you get into that? Where was that birth from?
So I didn't mean to cut off your question. Go ahead.
And I was thinking back because I just know from my perspective, doing this has always been on the inner part of me since I was a young kid.
Yeah.
It has taken me all the way through my adult life to make it a realization. So just adding that piece, was this something that has always been that inkling? Because I know I didn't ever feel complete. Now doing this, I feel complete. So that was my other part.
Yeah, so I know that feeling as well. And I think that if you and I talk about corporate and how it wasn't very fulfilling, and that's nothing against corporate necessarily, but I think we were probably outside of alignment with what we're destined to do in a certain regard and what we really consciously want to do. And so the thing about fulfillment is it only comes, in my opinion, when you grow and when you contribute beyond yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so the podcast was born from the ashes of that car accident. I had a podcast called Conversations Change Lives.
Okay.
And Kevin had a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. And I was actually the first guest on his podcast. Which, going back and listening to that, we've done 435 episodes since.
Nice.
And listening to that first one where he interviewed me is it's a trip. It's a trip to go back. It's actually still on my YouTube. And so anyways, we started getting together and we were doing episodes called Conversations Change Lives meets the Hyperconscious Podcast.
Okay.
We would come together and we would talk. And eventually it was so synchronistic that it's like, why don't we just partner up on this?
Absolutely.
And after that, that's kind of where Hyperconscious really started to take off. And now we're, again, 435 episodes in, and we have a business. He has his own podcast agency. So he helps people like you grow, scale, monetize their show. Yeah. And I have my own consulting firm. And so it's just, Kevin is first and foremost one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. Unbelievably humble, really good, emotionally heart-driven guy. And I'm really good at long-term strategy. Mm-hmm. He's really good at short-term tactics. And so we kind of came together. You know, he's day-to-day operations, I'm long-term vision, and we combined our strengths. And I think what's key about the Hyperconscious Podcast for everyone out there listening is get around someone who, I think alignment's everything. So I'll say this. You have your goals. You have your behaviors underneath those goals.
Yeah.
You have your core values. Yeah. And then you have your beliefs. And so I do this with my clients all the time. It's like, okay, well, I want to lose 20 pounds. It's like, okay, what are the behaviors necessary to do that? Okay. What core values must you have and embody in order to achieve that goal? And then what beliefs must you have to achieve that goal? And a lot of times it's a belief that needs to go. So I have one person who was like, showed me their dream physique. And it was this guy named Sadiq, who is a really famous bodybuilder who's just jacked beyond all reason. Okay. And this client at the time literally said, but I don't really like weight training. And in my head, and I said, I mean this with love, but like, then forget it.
Yeah.
But my sense of awareness, like you can't want a goal without wanting the behaviors necessary to achieve it. You're not going to look like Sadiq without weight training. That's how he did it, right? He says verbatim, I can count on one hand how many times I've missed the gym in the last 5 years, right? And so it's like you can want that goal all day, but you'll never achieve it unless the behaviors are aligned, the core values are aligned, and the beliefs are aligned. And so to answer your original question, though, how was the Hyperconscious Podcast born, and was this always in my heart? I often ask people this, what's your acorn? And they're like, what do you mean? So if you're out there right now and you've shopped on Amazon, Jeff Bezos talks about Amazon's acorn. And he says, you can't plant an acorn and then expect the next day to have a mighty oak. Big things start small.
Yeah.
And Amazon's acorn is very simple. And he never lost sight of it. To help someone make a purchasing decision online. One Click now exists as a part of that acorn. He never lost sight of basically making it easy for us to make purchasing decisions.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people, it wasn't like, oh, be the best e-commerce website of all time. It wasn't that. It was help people make a purchasing decision more readily, more easily, more available online. And so what's your acorn in your life? And what's interesting, and I ask people on the podcast this simple question. I say, we grow, we evolve, we change. Okay. Most of our guests, all of our guests have grown, evolved, and changed a lot over the years. What about you never changed? That's your thing.
Mm.
And so now I look back from this higher sense of awareness, and I came to this fairly recently, actually. The thing about me that never changed is I was insatiably curious to learn everything I could about people, and I always wanted to grow and help people develop. So my acorn is to grow and develop leaders. I do that with my clients. I do that with all my intimate relationships. I've done that with Kevin. I've done that with anyone on our team. That's what I'm doing right now, in a
Yeah.
way. Right. And so I've designed my life around this one acorn of how can I have the greatest impact possible? And to me, it's helping grow and develop leaders. And so what's your acorn? If you're out there right now and you are obsessed with rapping, maybe that's your acorn.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're out there right now and you're obsessed with podcasting, maybe that's your acorn. So my acorn is to grow and develop leaders. Podcasting is one of the means, one of the vehicles by which to do that. Now, if you notice, consulting, coaching, podcasting, speaking. So I grow and develop leaders through oratory, through the craft of speaking. And so if I've been able to impact you today and help you grow and develop, I'm doing my purpose. And if you're out there and you want to find your purpose, ask yourself that question. What about me never changed? And I guarantee you there's an answer in there that will really help you get clarity.
That's good. That's good. Having that higher sense of awareness is just phenomenal. And it takes, I know from my perspective, and I know you go through it as well, it's constant work. It's not something that we never fully arrive. There,
Yeah.
there's completion
There is no arriving.
and no arriving. A dedicated day by day process of making the small changes, making the adjustments. I like to take my clients through that as well. When we develop the SMART goals, we reverse engineer it, we create those milestones, we talk about celebrating the small wins, and we just go through that process. They hate the first bit of homework I give them because everybody wants to change something. Everybody has big goals. I say, well, how are you spending your time? Let's do this 168-hour week breakdown.
Yeah. Time audit. Yeah.
Break down
Time
everything.
audit too. People hate that. Yeah.
And because it takes time. And what everybody wants is a quick fix. I want to change my life now. I want to make the next $1 million now. I want to lose all this weight now. But it just popped in my mind. I'm doing a veggie and fruit challenge. So for the first 7 days of the month, only fruits and vegetables, only water, fresh, nothing in the can. And for me, I did it because I have a medical condition, and inflammation and joint pain is one of the things I've been dealing with for several years. And I've been on medication and, nothing works. I have never fully committed to changing my diet. So I got hooked up with a health coach, and she talked about, okay, inflammation, diet, change your diet. So I'm working on this. But she says she automatically knows when someone's not going to lose weight because they say, how long is it going to take?
Right.
They're focused on the quick fix, but being healthy, what she says, is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Being aware, self-aware, conscious, and growing is a lifestyle. It's something that we wake up and do every single day. And I'm sure that you have your mentors, you have your coach. Coaches have coaches.
Oh yeah. Got
We're,
it.
we're not out here just coaching and saying you need a coach. We also do the same. We also surround ourselves with, as Les Brown would say, OQP, only quality people.
I love
Make
that.
sure,
So good. So good.
make sure that if you are on this journey, sit where you are, think about it, as Alan has told us, and then make the decision and commit to moving forward. I love what you said about the future, that is spotless. Right now, that's something that you said that hit me hard. I'm like, wow. So right now, today, I can make a conscious decision, a determination to move forward in a more positive direction. And that way my future is changed. It's not written already. I can begin to change where I am right now. Small. If I was drinking, maybe it's cutting back, maybe, and then stopping. Nothing has to be done. Rome wasn't built in a day. Nothing has to be done immediately. Take the time, put in that work, that effort, and then you will see the outcome.
Mm,
Compound effect at its greatest.
yes.
Definitely appreciate that. Those you just dropped a lot of wisdom and knowledge on the call. So you have this. You seem very busy, still doing consulting, speaking, and I know that you talked about it being the oratory fact. But if you could pick one thing to do every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, such a cool question. Such a cool question. Hmm. One thing for the rest of my life, what would it be? It would be what I'm doing right now. It would be using the experiences and things I've learned through my own craft of oratory to inspire and help develop other leaders. Because I was on we had my beautiful girlfriend Emilia and Kevin's girlfriend on the mastermind. We have a mastermind every week, and every Monday. They came on and did training on our relationship structure. So we have, systems for our personal life. We have systems for fitness. We have a certain regimen. You don't go to the gym once and you're fit for life. You just mentioned that. You don't, just like your relationship's not out of the gate and just stays perfect without any work, right? And so we have these systems develop of gratitudes at night, weekly check-ins and questions we ask each other. And they did a training on this. And Kevin and I just were there to kind of facilitate that experience. And we had like, I think 25 attendees, and it went live on Facebook and it's got like 500 views. But my point is this: I've been able to witness the people I love elevate to an extent that I know wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for my example and if it wasn't for my ability to really inspire them. And I don't need credit. I just can witness it. And it's so cool. And so later that night, Emilia was on an Instagram live with a listener of our show who was interviewing her on her podcast, and listening to them two and like what the impact I've had. Emilia told this story about how we were in bed and I basically said, "Sweetheart, we'll never have this moment again." We were actually listening to like love songs, and it was just this beautiful moment. And I said, "We'll never have this moment again." And it actually made Emilia cry, and she remembered it, and she was saying it on the podcast. And in my head, I was just like, oh my goodness, like a moment we shared where I inspired her with my words, sort of like what I said about the spotless future. It's going to have an impact that I'll never even know. But there's something about being able to help someone else elevate that just fulfills me more than anything. And so hopefully, today I've said something or been something, because sometimes it's not just the message, it's the messenger that helps you help more people.
Absolutely.
And I hope in the future I get to sit down with you or hire you for a speech on one of our stages, or maybe you hire me. Like I can't wait for us to look back on this experience and be like, you know what, that really shifted that one thing for me. And it just got me to move in a whole different, better direction, a more aligned direction. And so that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that's what I'm doing as well, which is really cool.
Absolutely. And it's just so good. You drop so many gems that you, even for me, had such impact, because also I believe that when things start speaking to you and from different people, it's time to make that change. That whole self-care thing, you just hit that nail on the head. Many things that you have shared really have touched, and I'm like, wow, those are things that I've been doing, and now I can finally see that the fruit is coming and I need to do more. And
Yeah.
like you said, if we're not operating in our gift, we never know who the person is. Had you never made that statement, maybe you just thought it and you were laying there and you thought it, but you didn't share it verbally. She couldn't have taken it and impacted other people. So
Right.
when you operate in your gift, when you do what you're called to do, when you're operating in your purpose, you impact people, and then those people go on and impact people.
Yeah.
It's just that it's a snowball. It just rolls and keeps growing and growing and capturing more people. So I definitely appreciate all the things that you brought to my audience today, because I know that I'm in the business of empowering people to reach their goals, to overcome challenges. And this was birthed out of my own desire and things that I saw growing up that, I feel like we just did not have information.
Right.
We didn't have someone telling us all these different things were possible.
Right.
Our parents, our grandparents, the people we grew up around, all they knew was work hard. This is what you do. You work hard. My mom started to do differently. If you don't want to work hard, you got to go down this path. I didn't go fully down that path, so I can't tell you what all the things are available. But if you do this, your life can change. And to hear the story about your mom supporting you through that just resonated with me deeply. And I know my audience who I'm speaking to you guys who feel like you don't know something. You don't know what's next. How do I change? I feel like and people feel like with mistakes they made, their world is over and
Mhm.
the spotless future. That's that's significant. That's huge. Anybody out there, if you've made a mistake today, you can choose to do different.
Mm.
Get that forgiveness. Maybe you need to heal or repair some relationships. Maybe you need to cut some off, but move forward in a positive manner. I asked you about your routine because all successful people, all people who have released a higher level of success have a peak performance routine.
Yep.
They-
No exception to that rule. I've never seen an exception to that rule. You can't wake up and wing it,
Not at all. But most people do.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if most people wing it. I think most people they're trapped in the routine and a routine that has been created for them and they're just pieces. I go to the job, I come home.
If I could give one more golden nugget before we wrap up here, if that's okay. So, if you could really understand what I'm about to say, I think it will change your life. And when I understood this one concept, it's simple, but it's so powerful. Everybody does their best. Yes. Not everyone betters their best. Okay, I showed up today and I gave my all. But I'm going to review this episode and I'm going to think. I call it prep, rep, reflect, perfect.
Good.
I prepped for this interview by listening to you on your podcast earlier on my way to the studio. That's my prep. I'm going to do the rep. I'm going to show up and give my best effort. Okay? Reflect. When this comes out, I'm going to listen to it. Okay? And I'm going to perfect. I'm going to take the ums that I shouldn't have said. I'm going to take the stories, the distinctions. I'm going to take what landed. And I'm going to do better next time. Everyone does their best. That's true. But not everyone consistently betters their best. We see Tom Brady for 30 seconds on his 6th Super Bowl on the podium. Yeah. We don't see the 30 years it took him to get there. And the last thing I'll say is this short story. I gave a speech to a group of high school athletes. And it was on hyperconscious leadership, leading by example. And I said, who in here loves Tom Brady? I put up on the PowerPoint, big screen, Tom Brady Super Bowl trophy. I said, we're in New England. Who here loves Tom Brady? Everybody's like, their hand shoots up, right? Next slide. Tom Brady's book, The TB12 Method, How to Sustain a Lifetime of Peak Performance. Who here has read Tom Brady's book? Every hand goes down. I say, see, we both love Tom Brady, but I love him for a very different reason. His consistency, his leadership, his dedication, his commitment, right? His habits. That why you love something matters more than anything else. So if you're out there and you admire someone, figure out why. You can be admirable too. We all have heroes. Maybe it's The Rock. Maybe it's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to your kids was because maybe I can inspire them with my example. And kudos to you for being open-minded enough to have someone coach your kids at 7 and 11. Absolutely. It was so cool. In my head, I'm like, that's the kind of father I want to be. So you inspired me. I inspired them. Now we're doing this show. Hopefully we inspire other people. That's what it's about. So better your best. Give your best. You're going to mess it up 100%. 435 episodes, we're still messing up, but we're getting better every time. And so let your messy mess ups be still world class eventually. And if you do that enough times and consistently enough, other people will look. Emilia said this the other day. She said, it's crazy because after the mastermind, we have a quick feedback with our team.
Mhm.
They all of Natalie, Tiffany, and Amy on our team said 12 out of 10. Best mastermind we've ever done. I know Emilia, my baby. I knew she didn't like her performance. I called her after the team call and I said, babe, I know you're struggling right now, but I just want you to know the whole team thinks it was a 12 out of 10. And I want you to know that one of our team members said, this is nothing against Taryn, but Emilia's a fire speaker. And she's like, babe, that was like a 4. And I said, I know, I knew you'd feel that way, but imagine your 4 is someone else's 12.
Yeah.
Keep going. Just keep going. And that's what I want your listeners to know too. Like, you're not going to be good out of the gate. Nobody is. If you're moved by anything I'm saying, I've done 500 interviews. You know what I mean? And I'm still not that good, right? So like, just keep getting better, keep bettering your best. Don't cop out behind, well, I did my best. No, did you better your best?
That's good. That's a great piece of information. I love it because it shows that we haven't arrived, and nobody that I people may not know, but other than this connection, me and Alan have not spoken. So everything that you hearing is something that is just organic. This is I don't ever want to introduce anyone to the audience that may not have those same principles. And just hearing my kids talk about what he mentioned, I said, you know what? We're on the same wavelength. And the more we just spoke over this whole call, we're on the same wavelength, constantly getting better, wanting to improve, having a higher level of self-awareness. Even the greats, one of my coaches now is Eric Thomas. I was on a call with him today. He always talks about getting better. He's at the top. He is sitting up there with the Les Browns, the Tony Robbins, and they all consistently talk about doing better. Les Brown goes live every day.
Yeah. Isn't he like 80 still? Yeah. Yeah.
Live every day. But they're not quitting. So don't you guys quit. Better your best. Like Alan said, just continue to work and work and work, and you'll see the fruits of your labor. And even if it's tough or hard, another thing that Eric Thomas said that hit me was, yeah, we all go through pain. Get something for it. Don't just go through pain and quit. Get a reward. Come out. Do hard. Go harder. Drive. His book is Average Skill, Phenomenal Will. All about will. It's about pushing. So I definitely appreciate that. Alan, it was great having you here. Is there anything else that you want to leave us with?
The same thing that if I could put this on a billboard and everyone in the world could see it, there's no right or wrong, but there is right or wrong for you. Life is about choices.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You have a spotless future, and you can start making new choices today.
Great piece of no right or wrong, but there's a right or wrong for you. It makes me think about when Paul was talking, several of his letters, he would tell them, he would say, I can do all things, but it might not be profitable for me to do them. Just because you can do something, it may not be good for you or profitable for you to do it. So that's a great gem that you dropped right there. Great nugget. Alan, tell us how we can follow you. How can we reach you? How can we check out the Hyperconscious podcast? Where can we find you guys?
So you can go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at alazarus88. That's ALAZAROS88. Between myself, Amy, my assistant, we reach out, we get back to everybody. So every DM gets answered. And so please reach out if you are challenged with anything. Here's what I know. When I look back on the last 5 years since that car accident, it's the people I met that made the biggest difference. You can look back on your life. I mean, you get coached by Eric Thomas, like we get coached by David Meltzer. Your network is going to change your life.
Yeah.
And if you reach out to me, even if I don't have the answer, I guarantee you I know someone who does. So I can point you in the right direction. So please reach out. Instagram's best. You can look at me on Facebook. Here's what I'll say. Google Alan Lazaros, ALAN, last name Lazarus, LAZAROS. I'll come up a bunch because, to my knowledge, I'm the only Alan Lazaros in the world, actually, except for one guy in Germany named Alan Lazaro, who I've accidentally sent emails to, by the way. I need you to know that. But reach out, please. Between me and Amy, we get back to everybody, and we just want to help you.
Perfect. That's phenomenal. Great. Guys, again, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Empowerment Platform, where our goal is to simply help you reach your goals. And we do that by providing content, information, and connections. And again, Alan, thank you. Thank you so much. You said one more gem, one more nugget. Your network determines your net worth. So surround yourself with like minded individuals and people. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.